Chapter 1. December 31st, 2005. I resolved to get that girl to marry me. Sam. Moments after I dial down the propofol drip, the drug we nurse anesthetists jokingly call milk of amnesia for its color and the way it disassociates the brain from what's happening to the body, my patient's eyes flutter open. "How are you feeling, Mrs. Stone?" The 44-year-old mother of three, pulse ox an acceptable 97% and blood pressure 120/80, furrows her brow in confusion. "When are you going to put me to sleep?" Ah, the nurse anesthetist's favorite question, one I'm always happy to contradict. "All done already," I assure her. "You did great. We're just going to wheel you into recovery and let you rest there for a bit." She winces and places a hand on her belly. "And I'm not pregnant anymore?" "You are not. Everything went like clockwork." After I ask her about her pain levels and determine that she's not suffering any side effects from the anesthesia, I reassure her that a nurse will be available in the recovery room to go over aftercare and answer any questions. She sighs in obvious relief. Number 2 on my list of favorite reactions. "Thank you. Thank you for being so kind." "Just doing my job, ma'am." Or one of my jobs. There's nothing like helping a mother bring a baby into the world, and I make a hell of a lot more money doing an OB shift at the hospital. Some CRNAs who specialize in obstetrics won't work elective termination of pregnancies, but I find it's a nice balance to the roller coaster of delivering babies, where you're present for what could be the best day in a person's life or the very worst. An abortion can be life-saving, or just a necessary solution, and I'm proud to be a vital part of the team providing this service, even if it's only one day a week and I'm working for pennies. My parents aren't so keen on my choice to work for Planned Parenthood, but they've been unhappy with me since the moment I chose nursing school instead of med school, mortified that the son they sent to the best private schools would waste his education on so-called women's work. At least they don't think I'm murdering babies like the protesters outside. My job is making people comfortable, both physically and, I hope, emotionally, so they can get the health care they need no matter their circumstances. I can't exactly empathize since I don't have a uterus myself, but I hope my care helps make up for the legions of men who've helped get my patients in this situation without sticking around to pick up the pieces. A shift at this clinic usually runs like clockwork, but when I step out to meet my next patient, the office coordinator intercepts me. "No rush, we've had a cancellation." "Was it those assholes outside?" "I don't know. I hope not, but..." Her expression grim, she shakes her head. "I'm so sick of chasing them off the lawn. They keep knocking down the sign marking the 18-foot borderline, and then they claim they don't know where the patient's 6-foot buffer zone begins. When they've got a speaker and a microphone, that protection becomes meaningless anyway." She leans against the wall, hugging a stack of charts to her chest. "Honestly, I think the groups muttering prayers passive-aggressively are creepier. Especially when they bus in kids from the religious schools," I shudder. "Indoctrinating them early." Anyway, maybe the cancellation was for another reason. She pushes off the wall and heads toward her office, calling over her shoulder. "In any case, your next patient isn't here yet, so you've got about 20 minutes. "Gotcha. I'll be in the break room if you need me." Since I'm running on fumes, having driven directly from a 24-hour shift in the OB ward at the hospital, a cup of coffee is just what the doctor ordered. Unfortunately, the break room faces the lawn where the protesters gather. Apparently, there's a core group that shows up every day to harass patients, even though we only do abortions 2 days a week. A CRNA like me is only needed for ETOPs, elective termination of pregnancies, since the clinic doesn't do any other procedures requiring anesthesia. So whenever I take a break to grab a coffee or on the rare occasions I have time to sit down to eat lunch, self-righteous anger is on full display. Some days I close the blinds so I don't have to watch, But today, after I pour a coffee and add the cream and sugar my waistline doesn't really need, I'm drawn to the window. Like when you can't stop yourself from rubbernecking at an accident on the highway, my eyes scan the faces in the crowd. The man in a suit, mic in hand, his brow shiny with sweat despite the cold, hair greased back, shouting about sin as if he's never made a mistake in his life. The huddle clutching rosaries, praying silently and passive-aggressively. And the red-faced men, why are there so many men? Men who can get a woman pregnant and never have to face the facts, with their signs featuring gory images that have nothing to do with the truth. Just as I step closer to the window, the sun breaks through the clouds, glinting off of the silver paint of a car pulling up to the curb, and a roar goes up from the crowd. A slim figure wearing a reflective vest bearing the words Clinic Volunteer Escort jogs over to help someone get out of the car. Protesters swarm the two women, and their chants gather momentum, visible in the white puffs of condensation as hot breath meets cold air, souring the milky, sweet coffee hitting my gut. Rationally, I know that my skills are needed inside, but the sight of that young volunteer putting herself between the crowd and the patient rouses the protector in me, has me straining to leave the warmth and security of the clinic behind, to trade the antiseptic scents and fluorescent lights for the sharp cold air and bright sunlight of a Boston winter day. When the two women turn to face the front of the building, my world tilts. As quickly as if I'd been delivered a massive hit of the drugs in my arsenal, my heart and my breath stop. Every bit of my attention is riveted to the woman escorting the patient. Voices raised in condemnation continue to assault the pair, but all I can see is that pale face framed by soot-black hair, a stride powered by fierce pride, and a chin lifted in defiance. I need to meet this woman more than I've ever needed anything. The patient she's escorting still needs to check in, so I have about 5 minutes before I should get back to business. Without consciously making the decision, I set my own coffee cup down, fill another, agonize for a second or two about what to add, and then book it to the side door without even putting on a coat. Luck is with me because I round the corner just as she closes the front door behind the patient. She shoves her hand inside her coat pockets and bounces on the balls of her feet, frowning in the direction of the parking lot. I clear my throat when I'm within a few feet of her, but she still whips around to face me, obviously startled. I raise my free hand in supplication. Not a protester, promise. She looks me up and down before releasing a sigh of relief. The scrubs are a good sign that I can trust you. I lift the steaming cup. I brought you coffee. Her eyes widen and a smile stretches from ear to ear, practically disappearing under the edges of her wool hat. You are a god. Despite the frigid temperature, my cheeks heat as I hand her the cup and pull creamers and sugar packets from my pocket. I didn't know what she'd want in it, so I brought this stuff too. She shakes her head. I take it black, but honestly, right now I'd drink anything that's warm. You know, you can come inside any time. I scan the green space in front of the clinic. Are you alone out here? She shrugs. I guess the other person didn't show. And you're new? Yep. Early start on a New Year's resolution? She laughs again, a musical sound that I could get used to. How'd you know? I've worked here a few years. We get a spike in volunteers around this time. Or when laws change or abortion access is in the news. She tips her head to the side. Are you a doctor? Nope, I'm a CRNA. What does that stand for? Certified Registered Nurse Anesthetist. That's quite the title. CRNA is easier to get your mouth around. No kidding. So what does a CRNA do? Basically everything an anesthesiologist does. But I'm not a doctor. I'm a nurse, which to most people means I'm a loser. Her expression doesn't reveal any judgment, though. We just nod at each other for a few moments, her cheeks as red as mine must be. Hard to tell whether it's from the cold, embarrassment, or both. Finally, she lifts the coffee cup. Well, thanks for taking time out to bring me this. It's a lifesaver. I'm not a player, never have been. I'm just a pudgy guy who's had way more friends who are female than girlfriends. But something gives me the courage to ask, hey, would you like to get coffee sometime? She laughs. You mean like not in a parking lot with an audience of rage-fueled nuts? Yeah, like indoors, just the two of us. Like a date? My head bobbing so fast it might bounce right off, I echo, like a date. Instead of answering, she pulls a pen from her coat pocket. Give me your arm. I do as she requests, and she writes on the inside of my forearm just as a car pulls up to the curb and a shout goes up from the protesters. Guess that's my cue. She straightens and salutes me with the coffee cup before jogging to face the crowd. Just before she gets to the sidewalk, she looks back and mouths, Call me. I nod, my smile so wide it hurts. A single thought enters my mind. I'm going to get that girl to marry me. And I don't even know her name.